my fishes, Courtney Mermaid here and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about what a mermaid tail maker looks for when they're debuting a new tail. So I was recently given the opportunity to come along to the debut of a new mermaid tail by one of my favorite local tail makers. If you guys haven't checked out the interview that I did with Ravenna Mermaid, be sure to do so. I'm going to leave it up for you in the cards as well as down in the description box. Go check it out. She's truly, like, her mermaid tails, I tell you, they really are individual works of art, and the amount of love and heart that she puts into what she does is just, it's very inspiring. So shout out to Ravenna Mermaid. You know I love you, fishy, and I'm so excited that you invited me along to see your latest mermaid tail creation. It is absolutely insane. And yes, I am going to do a dedicated video just to that tail specifically. It deserves the spotlight. So since I was able to tag along, I thought it would be a really cool opportunity to see another tail maker's kind of method for checking out their work, and also make a video giving my 2 cents on the things that I look for when it comes to debuting a new tail. With every tail that you make, you learn something, and this is true of all tail makers, you know, not just us two. It's true of everyone, and yourself probably included if you've ever tried to make a mermaid tail. And there's going to be a few things you want to look for as you are progressing, especially if you're somebody who is interested in making mermaid tails professionally. I do get asked a lot of questions about how to start a mermaid tail making business, what to do, what to look for, how to start, how to get the skills, and all of that good stuff. So this is going to be a good video to watch to give you a better idea. So this isn't going to be like a how to make a mermaid tail. If you want videos on how to make your very own mermaid tail, I have playlists galore. I'll be sure to leave my tail making, my painted tail making playlist up in the cards, and I will also leave a link to my ebook down in the description box down below. How to make the, oh, are you okay? Oh, oh no, I'm filming right now. But no, I'm filming right now. Okay, you go up here and lie down. Okay, okay. I'm not going anywhere, I swear. So before I was so rudely interrupted, I will be sure to leave you guys a link to my ebook where I talk all about how to make printed mermaid tails like the ones that you see on my channel. Okay, so I haven't done these in any particular order, and I did have like a mini convo with Ravenna Mermaid at the time. We were kind of just spitballing, talking about some of the things we look for when we're sort of checking out how one of our newest creations has turned out. So they will be a little bit different for her than they will be for me, since her tails do have more moving parts than mine do, which was kind of cool to get her opinion and take on it. So let's start this list off with a very broad one. So like, how successful was your first impression? So what was so if you're making your tail for a client, or you're making it for yourself, or you're making it and there are people around, what was the reaction? How did people feel about what it was that you made? Now everybody's going to feel differently. It's not necessarily going to be a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. So it's going to really depend on who you made the tail for, but it's a really good thing to see what their reaction was. And you can always get like a pretty good idea of how successful you were right off the bat. But the next one that I tend to think on the most is how functional was it? Something that not everyone takes into consideration when they're first making tails is the functionality. Is it easy to get into? Is it more of a challenge? Is it functional in terms of travel? Or is it easy to get the monofin in and out? Is it going to be a lot of work to maintain? Overall, how functional is it? And during the first swim, that's a bit of a harder one to determine. That's more of like in the long term. So for example, when I was first making my my spandex, yeah, I'm laughing at you. You got a problem with that? I was looking for things like how easy are they to transport, how well do they maintain their color, you know, all of this kind of stuff. So how functional and how cute your dog is makes a huge difference to your mermaid tails. Seriously. What is he even doing every single time? He only does this when I bust out the camera. I could be talking on the phone, he couldn't care less. He's just going to town. Yeah, you. As part of that, the functionality, did anything come apart? Like, did the tail fall apart or anything? I've been pretty fortunate. I've never had a tail like spontaneously combust or anything. I have had issues where like I realized afterwards that I would have done something a little bit differently. For example, the goldfish tail, if you haven't been around my channel for a while, you won't know what I'm talking about, but it's the orange tail. You may or may not have seen me in a few videos. Not really, I am trying to film. Come here. You here and lie down. You got to be patient. So my goldfish tail was one tail where it did actually have a pretty fundamental flaw that I didn't realize until a couple of swims later. So this is another one where it's not just so much on the very first swim. However, if something were to come up, make a note and don't make that same mistake twice. The next one is definitely more to do with design. How well did your design, your concept, translate, and how does it like translate to being in the water? That might sound a little strange, but something that works well in photos or just on land might not look as appealing in water. I've seen a few designs floating out there. Obviously, everybody's got their own style and their own look. There are some things that I feel work better than others in the water. And, you know, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad or anything. And Ravenna is quite masterful actually at making her things look really epic in the water. If you guys haven't seen, I swear, go watch that interview because you'll see her tangled sort of inspired tail, her Rapunzel tail. And she did something I never would have thought of. She had this crazy dorsal, which was like blonde, like the hair coming down, but it doesn't look like hair. It just looks like magic, like floating, flowing. It's just so good. But for everybody, it's really important to look at your design and see how well it translated in the water, because you'll be able to make notes for your future projects. Okay, another really important one is how well did the colors work in the water? So I get asked this a lot. What color should I make my mermaid tail if I want it to show up in the water? Well, there's actually a really cool video, and if I can find it, I'll link to it, that actually shows, it was a diver who went down with tubes that were all sort of different colors, and they just dove down. And the first colors to go are red, is the first color, boom, it turns to gray, almost, not quite immediately, but it is something that you have to take into consideration pre like this stage where you're checking out your final product in the water. Doing your research to see what will show up well in the water. Some mermaids will want to blend in, others will want to stand out, and you're going to have to take that into consideration when you're designing your tail. But if you did try something a little riskier, make a note of how it turned out. I feel like this tail in particular stood out so well, despite the fact that it is also blue. It's sort of like a turquoisey kind of blue, of course, because it's based off of Gyarados. But it turned out really well because the materials she used interacted with the light really, really well. And just like, if you could have been there, I'm like, the video doesn't do it justice, but swimming alongside that tail was really, it was something so like, I don't even know, it kind of felt like bokeh almost, and like romantic kind of visuals. It was just very stimulating for the eyes. Another important one, how was the fit? So we all have our different ways of measuring for people. I've heard of people who just want the measurements, they want the distances and all the things. I like to have the outline. I ask for people's outlines when I make my mermaid tails. There's different calculations and things you have to take into consideration when you are making a printed fabric mermaid tail. I talk about that in the book. There's also things that you need to be aware of. Some of it is left up to the client, some of it is left up to you. If the client didn't very accurately take their measurements, or if they had the tail come up too high or too low, that will impact obviously how the tail turns out. But what you're responsible for is taking that information and putting it into your tail as best as you can. So how well did the tail fit? This will help you determine if you need to make adjustments in how you ask for measurements, in your templates, and any of that kind of stuff. And if you're not making tails for clients, like I just kind of jumped into the if you're working with the client, but if you're working for yourself, it's a really good opportunity to make a note like, okay, the ankles were a bit loose, maybe I could tighten that in a future design, any of that kind of stuff. A mermaid tail has to fit snug. When people get my tails and they're like, oh wow, like this is really tight, well, it has to be really tight because fabric, A, is not like silicone and it will stretch over time. This is just a fact of life. This is fabric, anything will stretch with time. The jeans I'm wearing right now, you can't see, but are gaping at my bum like this far. And it's because they're old jeans, but I like them and they're comfortable, so what are you gonna do? Now, what I really like about Ravenna Mermaid is she does a really good job making the fit like on point. This tail, there was not an inch to be spared. It was skin tight and it looked so good because of that. There wasn't like a lot of gaping, there wasn't a lot of like billowing, and of course it's made for the mahina, and if you are not familiar with the different monofins, the mahina is the one that comes out and flares out at the bottom with the loops up the middle. And that one is a very interesting monofin. It's not my personal favorite because what it does is it actually has your ankles like kind of coming in, your feet kind of going out, where a better Just let him finish. Whereas I feel like other monofins are better just because you have your ankles are more straight on. It causes less cramping, it's more comfortable. However, the flip side of that coin is that you do get a little bit more billowing around the ankles, so it's something to take into consideration. But a tail should fit snug. It should fit form-fitting. So if you're the one modeling the tail, bring somebody with you that can film you and give you some feedback. It's a good opportunity to look back afterwards and see, like, analyze the footage and be like, okay, well, this was a little bit of an issue here. This was really good. I should remember to do that for future tails. And that kind of thing is really really beneficial to have it on video. Also, get as many different angles as possible. When you are first starting out and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make mermaid tails, don't just get the same angle over and over again, like you just like swimming by the camera in one way. Get as many angles as possible. And I always thought that I was really good at this until I hit the pool with Ravenna Mermaid, and she's like, and I want the top angle, and I'd like to see you, and you're gonna come this way, and then I want you to go here, and I want you to flip like this, and here, and she's super professional about it. And I was like, okay, I'm making mental notes as we go, how I'm gonna do this differently moving forward. But she was really good about knowing what shots she wanted to get to see how the tail worked in the water. I thought it was really brilliant, and I took something away from it. So make a mental note, get as many different angles as you possibly can, because you never know. Somebody's gonna get a picture in your work of art and they're gonna get it from an angle you didn't check to make sure that there wasn't anything weird happening. It's just, it can be awkward. You know what I'm saying? So the last thing to think about is, did your mermaid enjoy their swim? I feel like this is something that not a lot of people in the community really think about, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it's just not something that everybody's like, you know, on board with. Not everybody has the same physical issues that I have, that I live with. So comfort for me is an absolute must. My tails have got to be comfortable. They gotta look good and they gotta be comfortable. And those are like the only two things that really matter to me. I don't really care about all the bells and whistles. I need comfort. I wanna actually feel like a mermaid when I'm swimming in my mermaid tail. I don't wanna just look like a mermaid. I wanna feel like a mermaid, okay? That is how you can convince kids that you're real even when you're rocking a fabric mermaid tail, and I am not even kidding you. How did your mermaid, whoever you had made the tail for, be it a client, be it a friend, be it you, how did you enjoy your experience? Was it everything that you hoped it would be? Is there anything that's giving you some discomfort? Is there anything that you feel like was slowing you down, that was dragging you down? Anything that you would like to improve upon in terms of the overall vibe? Just how did the tail make you feel? Was the design pleasant? Did you appreciate the compliments that you got, or did you get any negative comments? And take it all with a grain of salt, because other people's opinions, in my opinion, don't really matter for squat. What does matter is the person in the tail. How did they feel about it, and how did they enjoy it? How well did it meet their expectations, and that kind of thing. So that can be a hard one, especially if you are someone making tails for other people, because you will have sort of your level of expectations and how you feel that it went, and then there's how they feel. You have to find that good middle ground, basically, to know that you did the best job that you could and that they're also happy with it. So for me, when I'm working on a tail, I like to imagine that I'm putting into it all of my positive mermaid vibes and good energy. And I know that maybe not everybody's all like, oh, Courtney, that's kind of woo-woo, like that's kind of kooky, like what you talking about there? But for me, it is hella important to even talk to that piece of fabric and to tell it, like, I want you to keep my mermaid safe. I want you to bring my mermaid joy and happiness and a successful mermaiding adventure, wherever this mermaid journey takes them, right? So that for me is a really important thing, to put forth that part of myself into the work that I create. So those are some of the top things that any mermaid tail maker should be looking for when they are sort of debuting their newest mermaid tail creations. There are other things you could definitely add to this list. If I missed something that you thought was important, be sure to comment down below. Leave that for me. Let's get, we get the discussion going like we do on this channel. And I also want to hear from you. Are you a mermaid tail maker? Have you made your first tail? Have you just recently received your first mermaid tail? I know there was a bunch of you who asked for mermaid tails for Christmas, and I would like to know what you got, who you got it from, and have you taken it swimming yet? And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's video. It's a new year. I am so stoked. There is so much going on to share with you all. And before I let you go, I have to actually tell you the biggest piece of news, okay? Guys, I started a podcast. I did it. I finally did it. I know I talked about this years and years and years ago. I actually think I still had short hair the last time I talked about this. But here we are. I finally did it. I've started it. By the time this goes up, I believe the first episode will already be live. I'm gonna leave a link to it for you guys to check out. Swim on over. It's gonna be the introductory, who I am, why you should tune in, what the podcast is gonna be about. It is gonna be all mermaids, and it is going to be really, really good. So definitely check me out. So all that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you are ready to ride this wave that is 2020 with me, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Happy swimming. Bye.